Second most important part of the track, the kick. The kick is a sample that was brought in using Guru, and this is the kick. Without any processing, it sounds like this. However, the liquid mix was used. The liquid mix is an external device which houses compressors and EQs, and they're all vintage gear, so you can choose classic compressors and classic EQs, and it basically emulates them. So there's some slight compression. In fact, actually, you can see it's not even compressing. It's not even showing up any compression. And then there's the EQ levels, so there's a little bit of low frequency shelved out and a bit of a boost between 2 and 10k, raising to probably about 4.5k. It raises the most, and without it, it sounds like this, and with it on, it sounds like this. So it's just giving a bit of a boost there. So the sub bass sounds like this, and it's a very low sub you can hear at the bottom of the mix. I don't know if you'll be able to even pick it up on this tutorial, but without it, you can definitely hear it's not there. And then when it's there, you can suddenly hear it's there, but it doesn't. It's not really that strong in the track. So the plugin used was Sub Boom Bass, and I tend to use presets on this. So this is bass Get It Down, and I don't tend to play around this much because it's quite limited on what you can do. You've got quite a few different waveforms you can choose here, all different types. There's some samples as well, sort of congas and toms and stuff like that, but this is just a general sine wave. It's one of the basic sub patches you can use, and it just sits nicely at the bottom of the mix. As well as that, there's some liquid mix on here, which is basically just boosting the low frequencies. So without it, it would sound like this. And then when you bring the liquid mix in, you can hear it just raises those low frequencies. And I've also used a spectrum analyzer, as well as my ears, just to see exactly what I'm doing. It's just another gauge of what you're doing. I've also used a different bass in the breakdown. This sounds like this. And for this, I've used the Trillion. The Trillion, again, you tend to just use the plugins, the settings available. You can alter it a bit, but this emulates vintage gear, so you tend to just choose a setting and stick with it. So this one's the Moog Voyager, and here's the settings that I've used. I do tend to play around with the ADSR a bit, and potentially the LFOs and stuff, but apart from that, I don't really tend to, with the bass, go straight that far from the presets. And then I've had some EQ. Again, I've used the liquid mix, so there's a bit of a shelve in there, and I tend to compress my bass, so you can see there's quite a lot of compression on there. So without it, it sounds like this. As well as that, I've taken out a frequency here with the Ableton's own EQ. So that's what it sounds like with no EQ at all. And then I've just taken out a frequency there which I didn't like. And then I've added the liquid mix, which boosts some frequencies as well. Both basses have got very simple chord structures. Here's the bass for the breakdown, which is a very, very simple piano loop there. And for the sub bass, you can see there. So apart from, isn't much as far as drums going on. There's a snare here, playing on the 2 and the 4. And then there's another snare which I've used which is for the fill. Now the snare used is on Guru, and it's a patch on Guru, so this is what it sounds like, and that's got reverb, EQ and compression, and also I put the PSP vintage warmer on it, so this is what it sounds like with nothing on. And then I've put the PSP vintage warmer on it, which basically just makes things sound a bit warmer, a bit more analogy sound. So you can hear that it adds a little bit of distortion, sounds quite nice. It's got some settings on here, and this is just a snare drum setting. And then I've used the liquid mix again with compression and EQ. And then I've topped it off with quite a bit of reverb. And there you can hear it sounds a lot more snappier now. The EQ actually helps quite a lot in making that sound quite snappy as well. And it's got quite a nice sort of crunchy kind of sound to it, which sounds quite nice on a snare. And then again, I've used the same settings or the same plugins on the fill. So on the second snare, I've just added a few bits at the end to make a bit of a fill, and it's got exactly the same settings as the previous snare, it's just on a different channel. So the only other percussion is this. You just about hear what it is. And again, it's using Guru. I tend to use Guru for most of my percussion, or most of my one hits. So that's what it sounds like without the liquid mix on. It sounds like that, so you can hear it's taken out some of the low frequencies, so it sits better in the mix, as I don't want things getting cluttered at the low end. As well as that, there's some toms which sound like this, and in the mix you might hear it in the breakdown. So the way I made them sound quite interesting was, if I take all the plugins off, it sounded like this, which is just, as you can see here, it's just a simple pattern here, 3 hits, then a break, and then 1 hit. But then I've added some effects on it. So the first thing I added was Effectrix. Now this basically you can use as almost like a drum sampler, and you can add in different effects to play on different beats. So this is what I've used, and it makes it sound like that. And then I've also added the liquid mix, which is again the EQ and compression, which is basically just bringing out the frequencies that I need. And then I've also used Filter Freak, which is the filter, and that's just used for effect. If I zoom out, we can see here at the start you don't really hear much of it, and then you can hear it slowly come into the mix. There's also some hats here which sound like this. Again, it's Guru, and it's just a sound which sounds like this. And then it's got the PSP vintage warmer on it, which brings out some of the frequencies nicely. And then I've EQ'd and compressed it. I've taken out quite a lot of the low frequencies there, even though there's not many in there, but just to make sure there definitely isn't. And I've boosted some of the high. I've had some compression, so that's sounding nice. And then it's just really just effect noises and synth sounds. So I'm going to go through. This is just at the beginning of the track, and this is a sample which has got a lot of plugins on it, but without anything on, it sounds